Alright, hi y'all. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing another kind of chatty video. I'm sorry y'all, my camera setup is kind of jank right now and oh, that's better, that fixed it. Y'all were like just at like a weird angle. I don't know how to like actually center my camera the way I need to. Here, that's like a little bit better. Okay, so I feel like I just wanted to do like another type chit chat video because I've gotten just a lot of positive feedback from some of my more recent videos where I just talk about like more biblical or Christian topics. And I really appreciate everyone who's reached out to let me know like it like really helped them in some type of way. And so I do think like a lot of times when I'm sharing those videos, it's just like something I've been thinking about. But the other thing is, I really do enjoy talking about like biblical topics and things because like my faith and my relationship with God is something that's important to me. Is it something that I always prioritize? No, like I definitely need to work on, being more consistent and like my prayer life and reading my Bible and all of those things that you're supposed to do to, maintain a relationship with God. And, as Christians, sometimes it is like very easy to get like just distracted by the things in this world. And every now and then I like have these moments where I'm just like, you know what? None of the things that I'm worried about right now truly matter at the end of the day. Like every problem that you're dealing with or might be facing, they're all temporary, but it's just knowing like once you die, all of these things, like for me personally, with dealing with shopping addiction or bad spending habits, whatever you want to call it, there's times where I'm just like, whoa, like all of this stuff that I'm buying and all of these things that I collected, like I can't take any of this when I die. Like all of this stuff has so little importance at the end of the day when you really think about your life in the grand scheme of things. Like these objects, everything, all of these things, these materialistic things are very, very temporary. And so it's just like, yeah, I might get like temporary joy out of like some purchases, but in the grand scheme of things, like those things really are not going to matter once I die. Like all of the stuff that I have right now, if I were to die tomorrow, it's just going to be auctioned off. It's just like they're just things at the end of the day. And, you know, I definitely have been not following my budget I had for like spending. So we're still like just working through I guess that issue. I also think too for me, I'm sorry, I know this is getting kind of off topic from the video. For me too, but I also think like the last time I talked about my shopping addiction, people kind of liked that. But I also think too, a lot of it for me is like binge, or I don't know how else, what's the other word? Um, it starts with an I. What's it called? Not, well, it is kind of compulsive. Is it impulsive? Impulsive, that's the word. I was like, compulsive is not the word. I do kind of spend my money impulsively, or I don't know, maybe it is compulsively is the right word for that. But basically it's just like I'm not necessarily, I like will impulsively buy things that I really don't need to. I'm about to look up the definition. Yeah, compulsive is also the same thing. Anyways, it does mean the same thing. So compulsive, impulsively buy, compulsively, whatever. Buy things, and then like after I've done it, I'll be like, I shouldn't have done that. So it's just like I'm still working through, like, I don't know. And maybe I do need to get like some actual counseling too for it, because I don't think I'm good on my own, but at the same time, I know like I still have to do the work in order for that to change. So, it's a lot of stuff. Anyways, ooh, sorry y'all. I feel like there's something in my eye. Anyways, I wanted to talk about, share part of the reason I am so comfortable having discussions or having these discussions about like my faith or like biblical things. So one of my best friends and I, like, we've always had very, very like deep conversations about religion, and she's kind of in a place where she's still figuring out exactly what she believes, and we've had like differing opinions on a lot of things. Or she'll like ask my perspective because she knows like I'm pretty much, she knows like I consider myself a Christian and nothing else. Like I don't look into like any other things. But she's someone who is still figuring out, like, she did grow up in like going to like Christian churches, and so I think she does consider herself a Christian, but she doesn't necessarily like believe everything in the Bible, which I, of course, as a Christian, would say that is a problem. To If you are claiming Christianity but don't believe the Bible, it's kind of a contradiction, because the Bible is what literally defines Christianity. And if you don't trust that the Bible is truth, but you're claiming to find beliefs in a book that you're saying is not truth, you kind of have already crumbled, what you, if you, it just makes what you're claiming to believe seem like you don't really trust it at the end of the day. Because if you don't trust the book that literally defines your beliefs, how can you say that's your belief? Like, you don't trust your own belief. So that's a problem that I do think, like, when you're more lukewarm, that's gonna be a bigger issue. I'm at the point though now where I'm just like, the Bible is absolute truth. It's undeniable truth, and I'm not really questioning what I believe. I'm just trying to grow in my relationship with God. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because I've had lots of discussions with her, and she asked like very hard, very challenging questions, which is why, I love it too, because it also challenges me to like find the answers. Also, like, she asked very, very good questions that, maybe a lot of people have, but people can't always answer. And I also do think about a lot of things too. Like, I've always been someone who's been very pensive in a sense. Like, I think about a lot of things. That's honestly what keeps me up at night most times. Is just my thoughts, me being alone with my thoughts and thinking about life, thinking about the world, thinking about like all of these really big things right before bed. Why do I do it? I don't know. I just do sometimes. But anyways, one of the last things I kind of spoke with her about was, we she actually had shared me a video about hell, and I don't know if she even realized that, but her sending me that video helped me like get back on the right path of taking my relationship with God more seriously. Now, I still have been not making the best decisions. Like, I recently got myself in like kind of serious trouble. I don't want to share too much about it. I did make a story time, and I will be sharing it once, like, I don't know. I'm going to share it eventually so you guys will know like exactly what I'm talking about. But I found myself in a very not great situation where I kind of am like, okay, like I haven't been making the best choices, haven't been hanging with, I would say, you know, I like these people, but they're not leading me closer in my relationship with God, and the consequences, I'm feeling that I'm facing consequences for some of those things. But at the end of the day, she shared this video, which is, I made a video about it, or talked about it, of the guy's experience going to hell. And that video did kind of like light a fire up under me to be like, okay, I gotta take my relationship with God seriously. And she saw the same video. Initially, she understood it. And then, like, the next day, she was like, but I don't understand, like, why would God create people just to send them to hell? And so that was kind of, and I told her, like, you know, I can talk to you about that when you get a chance. She hasn't really reached out to me again to talk about it, but I know, like, she does have a lot of kind of she has more challenges, because I also think her idea of God is kind of warped, and she doesn't see the, and this is what I say, I'm not trying to call it my friend specifically, because I know it's like something a lot of people do, like a lot of, and when I make other videos about it too, I'm like, most people who don't believe in God have a false perception of who God is to begin with. Like, a lot of atheists will claim that they don't believe in God because he's this horrible being who killed millions of innocent people according to them, right? And I've even seen a comment, I saw a comment about this recently. I can't remember what the post was, but basically someone posted something like thanking God for something, and then like someone was commenting like, oh, your God killed millions of innocent people, like he's not good. And so atheists, most atheists have a warped perception of who God is, because they've created, in their heads, they've decided that God is not good, and so they have twisted kind of like the stories in the Bible to have like this negative meaning, because they don't understand like the holiness, righteousness of God. And you know, I always tell people, you have to think about it this way. Like, what in your like, this is how I think about it. So I've never tried to be God. And in my opinion, how these people who don't believe in God make these false judgments of God based off of false presumptions, but they also can't offer an alternative, because in their heads, you know, they've already decided that people don't, not even that people don't do wrong, they just decided that God does wrong based off of false presumptions about either the things in the Bible, or they just misunderstand like what God's holiness, righteousness, and judgment looks like. So I always try to tell people, not even that, I always just think about it like, okay, what is your alternative then? If you have an issue with how you believe God handled, you know, people's disobedience in the Bible, most specifically people bring up, I guess, like the flood, and saying like God killed all these people, for innocent people, for no reason. And I'm like, if you are saying these people are innocent, you clearly have not read the Bible. The days of Noah, people were doing the most evil things. They were sacrificing their children. They were worshiping false gods. They were literally worshiping demons and doing all of these evil things, There's another story where God warns that he's going to destroy this town. He sends the angels to warn them, and then the men are trying to sleep with the angels. Like, these people were committing like the most evil. They were evil. They had given over to their sinful desires. God said, like, God literally has never destroyed people without warning them first. If you actually read the Bible, you know God never just ups and destroys people without giving them warnings. He always gives people a chance to turn around, to change their path. And there's even stories like the story of Jonah, when God sent Jonah, and Jonah runs away. He doesn't want to go to, I think it was like Nineveh. When he tells Jonah, you need to go warn these people because I'm about to destroy them, Jonah runs away, didn't want to warn them. And then, you know, God's like, okay, well, I actually need you to warn these people, because God always warns people before he destroys them. So anyways, Jonah finally goes, warns the people of Nineveh, and because they actually heeded the warning, they actually changed their ways, and God changed his mind. He's like, actually, I'm not going to destroy them, because they actually changed their ways and stopped doing the things that he was going to destroy them for. So God will change his mind when people listen to the warnings. But if you ignore the warnings and keep doing the things that God's already said, you know, he can't allow, and then you ignore the warnings, yeah, I don't think people realize that it's like, it's almost like if you're being warned that something bad's gonna happen to you if you don't stop doing this. Like, let's just say, like, someone who's drinking and driving, right? You might get people have been warned time and time again. You drinking and driving, you could get in an accident, you can hurt yourself, hurt other people. But what if that person just ignores the warning and continues doing it? They might not immediately, you know, get into that car accident, but eventually it's going to happen. So God warns people over and over and over and over again in the Bible before he destroyed them. Like, it was hundreds of years of God's warning them, because he's also very patient. Like, God is slow to anger. That's a part, like, that's who he says he is in the Bible. He is slow to anger. But everyone reaches a breaking point at some point. Like, imagine that someone is doing something to hurt you. Like, someone's even just like poking you. Like, you might be able to handle it for a couple of seconds, but if someone's been poking you for 10 minutes, eventually you're going to break, or you're going to go off on them. So that's exactly what God does in the Bible. People are doing evil, detestable things according to God, including sacrificing their children on a molten hot lava, killing their children, sacrificing them to Molech or Baal, whoever it was, these demonic entities at the end of the day. False gods are demonic entities. I hope people realize that. Most of the false gods that people worship are fallen angels. They're demonic spirits. So like basically everything, every other like, if you think about like Greek mythology and all of those things, like, these are all false gods. Like, these, and the Bible even talks about this, you know, he's like, the Greek gods, he calls them, and he uses little g, like, these are false gods that they used to worship. The Bible mentions pagan / new age practices so many times. Like, everyone's falling for like the new age spirituality and whatever. It's like getting popular, you know, everyone wants to do tarot cards. People don't realize that like new age covers an umbrella of things, and it's called new age. It's not necessarily new, because someone else had said that like new age has been around for whatever. It's like, it's what the Bible refers to as pagan is what new age is, and that includes witchcraft, divination, tarot cards, astrology even. Like, people don't realize like none of that stuff is new, and the Bible also talks about it, and it talks about all of those things not being from God, and those people are serving false gods. So at the end of the day, if it's not the God in the Bible, basically everything else is false. It's counterfeit. It's not the truth. So if you don't truly believe, like if you don't 100% believe the Bible, if you're still, unsure about it, and this is what I pray for my friend, mainly just like for her to like find the truth. I want her to find the truth at the end of the day. I don't think that there's any truth in New Age. I think there's a lot of deception in it. And that is how like the devil's main tactic is deception. And the reason he's able to deceive people is because he attaches lies to the truth. But people don't realize if you attach a lie to the truth, it's still a lie. And so that's what the devil did in the story of Adam and Eve. So God warns Adam and Eve, if you eat from this tree, you'll surely die. What does the devil do? He deceives Eve, not because by lying. He says, you won't die. Lie. You'll have the same knowledge that God has. And that wasn't the lie. Having the same knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil, God had that knowledge, but we didn't have that when he first created us. And us not having knowledge of good and evil is what kept us innocent, is what kept God from having to ever ever punish us, because you cannot commit a sin if you're not aware of something being good or bad. But because we're aware of things being good or bad, we can now be punished for them. So that was the issue to begin with. So anyways, if you look back at that story, the devil tells a truth with a lie. God already told them that you will surely die if you eat from this the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The devil says you won't die, the lie, but tells partially the truth. So that's why he's able to deceive people. He attaches a lie to something that is true in order to get people to turn away from God. And I can't tell you, like, that describes so much of New Age practices to me, because there is some truth, but it is not complete truth. I also have watched so many people's testimony turning away from New Age that I just, like, I can't be deceived by it anymore, because I already know, like, it's not the truth, And I think that a lot of people who do get into New Age, it is because they are seeking some sort of spiritual experience. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of people are craving and searching for some form of spirituality, but people assume that religions like Christianity don't have that. But the Bible has always talked about like spiritual things, and the Bible has a lot of spiritual knowledge. Like angels and demons exist in the spiritual realm. So it's just like people crave a spiritual experience, and they try to get that through like these New Age practices where they feel like they have more control. But at the end of the day, they're getting further and further away from true spirituality, which you can only really find in the Bible, because the devil uses those New Age practices to lead people down a path that takes them away from God. But also it's counterfeit. Like everything in New Age is counterfeit to something that God actually created. And so when I watch people's testimonies who left it, the main thing they always say is this, like, everything that they thought they were doing good, and they woke up, and once they got saved, they realized how like evil it actually was. And so it's just like when you're in it, you can't see it. You have to get out of that to truly understand. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. What was I talking about? Basically, to get back to the original thing I was saying. So when my friend asked that question, or basically made the comment like, I don't understand, why would God create people just to send us to hell? Because because initially she saw the video and she was like, oh yeah, like I need to make sure I get my relationship, which is how her relationship with God, she wanted to like work on it. And then like not even a day later, she was like kind of backtracking, which is why I brought up the parable, because I've been reading my Bible plan, which I'll show y'all what it is if you guys want to read it. Well, it will be hard. It's a plan on the Bible app called Whole Bible in a Year. Whole Bible in Less Than a Year. And pretty much I've been reading this for over a year. I'm on day 246 out of 342. So I have less than 100 days. So I should be finished hopefully by like probably by either the end of May or beginning of June. I should be done. But yeah, there's just like basically her perspective on it changed to like saying like, oh, God is bad for sending people to hell, because she doesn't understand the gravity of sin according to God. Like I don't think she understands like what sin is according to God. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, especially outside of Christianity, like because hell seems so severe, and it is, but they don't see their sin as severe. And that's why they don't understand like how can a loving God send people to hell, because they don't understand the gravity of their sin. They don't understand how sin is, how that sinful nature, they don't understand like how it kind of just distorts people. Like I don't know how else to explain it. I also think it's just like, if someone is not comfortable with the idea of sin, that's also the other reason. And I don't think my friend is comfortable with the idea of sin. Like she doesn't. And I understand why from a psychological perspective, because, you know, most people don't want to think of themselves as being a bad person, you know? No one wants to walk around thinking like, oh, I'm this horrible person, the most horrible person in the world, and you know, I've done all these horrible things. And you know, the truth, and that's why I made another video talking about like the true gospel, because that's like, in order to actually be saved, you have to understand your sin. You have to understand the weight of your sin. You have to recognize that Jesus lived a perfect life, died for all of the bad things that other people did, just so that we could still get access to a heaven we don't deserve, because we were not perfect enough to earn it. And so it's just like, the free gift of salvation is not something that you can earn. You can't earn it by your works. Like, it's just something that God freely gave to everybody. And when you understand the Bible, it says, through one man sin entered the world, and through one man God covered the sins of the world. So it's just like, one man, through Adam, sin came into the world. Through Jesus, God delivered the world from sin. And so it's just like people don't understand how like circular the Bible is. Everything in the Old Testament points to the New Testament. The New Testament points back to the Old Testament, and they are very much like, the story of Jesus is in every chapter of the Bible. It's in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. It's in every single book of the Bible. You can find Jesus in every single book of the Bible when you understand like what to look for. But anyways, like, I think it's really hard for someone who, you know, doesn't want to think of themselves as a bad person to kind of accept the idea of sin. People don't like feeling like they're bad people. The problem with that is it's not truthful. It's not truthful to I guess, pretend that you've never done anything wrong or you've never done anything to hurt someone. And when you live under this guise of, and I'm not saying that this is my friend, I'm just speaking in general now, like people who live under the guise that they can do no wrong often are people who do a lot of harm. I've talked about that too in like my narcissist video, and how victim mentalities lead to narcissism, which leads to abusive people becoming abusive, because it's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism most of the time for people who see themselves as victims. They start to view themselves as unable to do wrong, which inevitably means that when they do something to hurt someone, they never take accountability and it's always someone else's fault. And those are the types of people that, they can't see themselves as less than perfect, in a sense. Like they have to build up they're either trying to build up their persona because they didn't feel good, maybe because of an abusive situation they grew up in, or they just got way too much praise and now they can't handle any type of criticism. So there's just, there's layers to it. From a psychological perspective, I understand it, but the Bible, everything the Bible says is always true. Like whether before science even discovered something, it existed already. So it's just like, why are we acting like science has all the answers when it's discovering something that already existed? Secondly, I feel like the science eventually always proves everything the Bible says is true. Like everything that's in the Bible is eventually proven true by science. Again, not that science proves that the Bible's truth. It's just like, because the Bible it already existed. Anyways, guys, basically, like, my friend had trouble with the idea of hell, trouble with the idea of sin, and why does hell exist? And these are like questions I do think a lot of people struggle with, things that I've had to work through. And I think like the only way to truly understand it is pray. Like prayer, asking God for guidance can answer way more questions than just, searching for other people, at least in my personal experience. Especially when I was fasting, like I used to get so much just like downloads of like wisdom nuggets is what I used to call them. And I'm pretty sure at one point I was writing them down, but like fasting is so important for like your spiritual life, because like when you fast from like, you're pretty much fasting from your flesh. Like when you are going without food for a period of time, you're not giving into like your flesh's needs. That is when you can actually feed your spiritual body. And so I would get so much wisdom during periods when I fasted, like wisdom nuggets, just like understanding things that I didn't understand before. So fasting is very important. I probably do need to do another fast soon. I've been slacking, like I said, in a lot of things. But for the most part, I think like fasting and prayer are the best ways to get answers to some of those harder questions. There's a lot of pastors' sermons out there online too that you can maybe watch to help you understand. For me though, I always try to go directly to the source. Like I don't want to, like, this is not to say I don't get like great, learn great things. Like there's literally a YouTube channel I love. It's called Daily Dose of Wisdom, where this guy pretty much just like finds a bunch of clips. Basically, it's exactly what he says, daily doses of wisdom. And I get so much like so much information, but like just so many cool things. And I love his channel because he is like biblically based, of course, but he also just like shares a lot of like people who worked in like scientific fields or whatever, shares like the different wisdom behind, you know, Christianity and what it represents as a whole. So that's also a good channel I would recommend. And I also think that channel might be maybe more targeted towards someone who might be atheist, because he shares a lot of like contradictions that views that atheists can hold. But mostly I just think like he shares a lot of like very interesting videos about like really tough subjects, I guess, or like really hard arguments. But I've always said, like, the challenge for an atheist is not evidence. The challenge is a lack of faith and doubt. They don't want to believe. An atheist does not want to believe. And I remember even when I don't remember, there was this one guy, he's like a popular atheist YouTuber, and he had basically made a video kind of, it was very like facetious, where he essentially says like he would have no problem believing in God. There's just not evidence. And this is why I said it was facetious, because he's not acknowledging his actual bias. He already believes there isn't a God. I don't believe that he is actually like, he's not actually open to the idea of God, although he claims he would be if there was evidence. Like, it was a very facetious argument he made, basically saying like there's just not any evidence that points to that. But there's literally renowned Christian scientists who can show all the evidence in the world to someone like that, and they still wouldn't believe. So it's just like, I don't think he was really being truthful or honest about like why he doesn't believe in God, because the truth is there's nothing stopping someone from believing in God other than themselves. Like, the biggest challenge is not the evidence. The biggest challenge is their hearts are not open to the idea of God. They don't want God to exist. They have false ideas of God, false presumptions about God. Most of them even openly say they hate God. I'm like, how can you hate something you don't believe exists? And the truth is, most people who become atheists are people who've had some sort of trauma, some sort of really hard experience that they maybe blame God for, and then decide, well, if God could allow me to go through this, if God could allow for this to happen, then he must not exist. That is actually their mentality. A mentality that, like, if suffering exists, God must not exist. But do they forget the story of Jesus? Jesus suffered. Jesus literally suffered. The Bible also never promises no suffering on earth. It promises no suffering in heaven, but not on earth. So the Bible also like basically says you probably is going to suffer. But by the grace of God, we can look forward to, there's hope of a better life. There's hope of a better life through Jesus. And that's why like a Christian can actually have more hope for the future of the world, because they're not looking to the world for, you know, they're not waiting for the world to change to have a better life, you know? It's just like when people's mentalities are limited to like, or people are focused on just like things of this world, things that are happening on earth, like all of the wars, like all of the things that pretty much the government tries to scare you about, like the war, global warming, like all of the things that these governments want you to be focused on. You know, the Bible says don't worry about anything that's happening in this world, because none of that is going to matter at the end of the day. And so it's just like, you can have joy in any circumstance when you're not looking expecting or waiting for people in the world to decide to, treat people with kindness before you'll be happy or something. It's just like the world is ultimately not your focus when you're a Christian. You're thinking about the kingdom of God, you're thinking about heaven. And that's also why the Bible says, like, don't store up, treasures here on earth, or that will be all. You know what? I need this for myself. Don't store up treasures here on earth, or that will be all the rewards you will have in heaven. Basically saying, like, if you are trying to store up for yourself, all of these good things, nice things here on earth, like, that's all you will experience. And that's also why the Bible says, like, in heaven, the first will be last and the last will be first. Because the people who are on the streets, and I don't even want to say like that extreme of on the streets, but people who are living in, not like, some of the best people I've known, people with the best hearts, they're not living in multi-mega mansions here on earth. Like, I will never forget this. This man interviewed like this homeless man he literally had the joy of the Lord in his heart, and like, he was homeless, living on the street, and still worshiping and thanking God. That man for sure got a mega mansion in heaven. And that's where it matters the most. Like, he wasn't even concerned. He was like, God's giving me all my needs for this day. I'm thankful. He had more joy than some people who are sitting in $1 million houses. So it's just like, people look at the things of the world, the things that exist in the world, as like what they should try to attain for, like, they're trying to fulfill themselves with the riches, I guess, of the world. But God's like, the Bible is basically saying, like, if you're focused on those things and that's what all you care about. So I think this is like not even a warning, but be careful what you're asking God for. Because if you're asking God for like this new house, this new car, you want this purse, you want whatever, these material things here on earth, God might grant those things to you, but when you get to heaven, God's going to be like, well, you wanted to store up all your treasures on earth. So now that you're in heaven, you're not getting the things that you want, because you wanted your blessings on earth instead of in heaven. So basically, when the Bible says don't store up treasures on earth because it's going to wither, it's going to rot, it's not going to last forever, versus in heaven where it's actually forever. It's just like, he's saying, don't be worried about the temporary things that you might gain in the world, because that's not going to last very long. And also, the first will be last, because the people here on earth who seem like they have the least have the most in heaven, while the people who have the most here on earth, and the Bible even says it's way harder for a rich man to get into heaven, for a reason, because someone who's focused on the riches of the earth is not necessarily rooted in the spirit, because you're seeking. Jesus did not, and this is what I say, it always comes back to Jesus, because Jesus was not living in McMansions. Did Jesus even have a home? Did Jesus even own a home? I feel like every story in the Bible, Jesus was traveling, staying at someone. He was always a guest in someone else's town, in someone else's city. I know he had his mama in his daddy's place, whatever. But Jesus did not actually have a physical home here on earth. He was always out preaching. He was always traveling to one place to another just to literally help people. And that's why Jesus is where he is, on the right-hand side of God. And remember when there's that parable where Jesus tells the man, who basically is saying, like, I can't remember exactly. It's like, basically he asked Jesus what's required for him to be perfect, and Jesus gives him like 3 things, and he's not satisfied with the answer. So then Jesus responds to him like, oh, so you want to be perfect? And he was like a very rich man or something. He says, well, if you want to be perfect, sell all of your belongings, donate them to a poor, and spend the rest of your life serving other people. And that man walks away because he had a lot of money. He was not willing to give up all of his belongings, sell them, give all of his stuff, give all of that to the poor to help those in need. Like, he didn't want to give up what he had. But that is what Jesus says is required for someone to be perfect, which is why we know Jesus was perfect. Because did Jesus have any belongings? Jesus spent his whole entire life helping people, serving people. So it's just like, you know, everything the Bible says, like I said, is truth, but it's also just like, there's just so many things that I feel like I always learn, even from just reading my Bible, listening to sermons, whatever it is. But I do think like I get the most from actually reading my Bible versus prayer and fasting versus just going to sermons. I honestly feel like, you know, sermons, not okay. I don't want to say that sermons don't help people, because I definitely think when I first started like getting more focused on my relationship with God, like watching sermons helped me. But I feel like once you get to like a certain level in your faith, it's just like you have to get it from yourself, like directly from the source. Like I'm not at a point where I still need the guidance of a pastor to understand things, because I can get that information straight from the source. But someone who is still new or growing in their faith, they definitely need that guidance. And I'm always looking for like a spiritually mature pastor who can also guide you. So it's just like, as pastors are important because they're supposed to help guide people in their walk with God. But also it's just like, after a certain point, you know, you also have to be able to get that for yourself. Like, you can't depend 1,000%, like always depend on what a pastor is telling you, because now you're getting all of your information from somebody else when you could go to the source directly. And that's why I also said the Bible is super important. Like, imagine if Christians decided like only some people can have access to the Bible. I feel like it's easier to manipulate people when they don't actually have access to the source. And that's why like the fact that the Bible is the most sold book worldwide speaks volumes, because God literally wrote his word in something that people could digest. He didn't just tell, like, that's what like people don't understand. Like, that is the power of stories. That is the power of a book, of a Bible. Like, why didn't God choose another form? People are acting like books are like the building, the starting point of knowledge. How do you learn most things? You read a book. How do you understand most things? You read a book. Like, you can learn from observing, yes. You can learn from experiencing, yes. But the knowledge that you get from reading, is how you teach things that there's no way to observe or experience sometimes. So it's just like the knowledge of God is not, I mean, you can have knowledge of God without reading the Bible, and you can also experience God without reading the Bible, but having the physical Bible as something that most people can get access to. I mean, there's some countries where the Bible is banned. I'm pretty sure it's banned in like China or something. And that's for a reason. Like, why is the Bible banned in some countries? Because they know the power it holds. They know that when people are religious, they put their religion before government, and the governments would rather the people serve them over serving God. At the end of the day, some governments would rather don't want people, they want to be the only authority over people. But as a Christian, it's just like God holds more authority than the government. And that's honestly why a lot of governments don't like religion, because people give religion more authority in their lives than the government, and the government sometimes contradicts what religious book says, as we all know from, like, I don't know, just watching the news. So yeah, places like Canada, like, I used to think Canada was like a great place until I realized that they're pretty like anti-Christ over there. They're anti-Christians. I remember reading about how, like, during the pandemic, you know, they tried to like lock up pastors or preachers for having like sermons in their house with like small church groups or something. Like, yeah, Justin Trudeau, whatever his name is, definitely is not, he does not serve God. That's for sure. So yeah, and I also think he's scared of people who believe in a higher power than him. At the end of the day, it is kind of like ego. Like, governments who hate God is because they'd rather you serve them than serve God. At the end of the day, don't know if even atheists understand that. Like, you serve somebody at the end of the day. You might not serve God, but you serve somebody. You might be serving yourself, but that's just a whole nother topic. Anyways, I think that's really all I have to say for now, but I think I do want to either make a separate channel just for like biblical talks, because I still post like a lot of other content, just so that people who really enjoy like just my biblical content or stuff about like religion, faith, stuff like that can have like a channel. And honestly, I'm probably going to make my beauty channel that channel, because to be quite honest with y'all, I don't be doing my makeup enough to have a beauty channel. Like, it used to be something I was like kind of passionate about, but I kind of stopped. But maybe I can do it like makeup and Bible chat or something. Like, I don't know. We'll figure out how I'll do that, but just know my beauty channel might become that channel, and I will keep y'all updated on whatever I decide to do. I also was thinking of possibly starting a podcast, but I don't know if I'm at that point yet. Like, I do be talking a lot, but don't know if I want to really do like a podcast type. Also, it's just like, I'm not really sure how to go about that. I do have like a mic that is useful for podcast type videos, but I also feel like I would need someone else to do it with me. Like, there's not a lot of podcasts of people like just completely by themselves. I guess I do be talking by myself most of my videos, but I mean, I'm not by myself because y'all are watching. But in reality, I'm literally talking in a camera by myself. So, but I'm talking to y'all as if y'all are watching, because I know someone's watching this. Someone is watching this video, is going to watch this video at some point. That's always kind of like, I know I'm not crazy, but it's also just like I'm literally talking to a screen. That does kind of sound crazy. That's also kind of why, like, I'm not sure if I want to start a ministry that's online or in person. I'm still kind of figuring out that too, because I do want to be able to do like have ministry, like have like an in-person ministry, just like in the city that I live in. So we'll figure that. I will try to figure that out too. But I also know like online ministries help a lot of people too. And so yeah, I'm gonna just have to figure out like how I'm gonna go about it. But for now, you know, it's just kind of spur of the moment is how I mainly film my videos. And someone had commented on one of my videos like, oh, your camera angles and movement. And I'm like, yeah, like my channel is not that channel where it's just like there's not production value in how I film at the moment. Like, I'm not necessarily trying to promote my videos as like a professional type podcast. I don't know why. I just feel like, I don't know. I like to be chill. I'm also just not a perfectionist, and so like things that would bother other people don't always bother me, which I think is like good for my benefit because, you know, I can roll with the punches or whatever, but you know, I'm just not a perfectionist, so at the end of the day, if something's not perfect, I'm still gonna post. I still post my stuff even when it's like a little chaotic and all over the place, which is 99 I would say maybe like 60% of my videos. Like, I do edit some videos, but I do be lazy editing my videos sometimes too, so even the edited videos are not necessarily like perfect. But I'm not worried about like being perfect. But if I do make a podcast or decide to make a separate channel for that content, I will try to at least just use my professional remote so that people can hear me, can actually hear me. So yeah, guys, that is all. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If y'all gave me like specific topics you'd like me to talk about, either like biblical topics or maybe just dating, like if y'all have questions or maybe scenarios, maybe that could also be a way. Like, I feel like it's easier for me to like talk about something if I'm responding to something, because that's usually what sparks my interest in talking, is like I'm responding to something that I saw or something that I watched. Wait, saw, that's literally the same thing. Something that I read on online, that's better, or saw or watched. So if y'all have like specific things or topics you'd like me to talk about, comment those down below, because that would actually be very helpful. If y'all made it this far in the video, I maybe should have said that at the beginning because this video is kind of long. But again, if there is some specific topic or subject you'd like me to talk about, I guess it doesn't have to be biblical because I still give my biblical perspective on things at the end of the day. Like, my ideas about dating as a Christian, it's very different. And you know, I definitely think I have a lot more wisdom when it comes to relationships and dating. So I do see myself making a lot more videos pertaining that topic, because I just feel like that is a topic where I've gotten a lot of wisdom and have been able to could help people more on that topic. But yeah, again, thanks for watching. I need to go to bed. It's 11:20. So good night, y'all. Bye.